Hi there! You saw lots of animal rescue videos on my channel. Some of them impressed you more than others. So now I decided to gather all the coolest stuff in this video. Be ready to feel touched by the most amazing heroes that did an extremely significant job. All the rescues in this video are real and are the demonstration of kindness and compassion. Rescue kitten stuck in mud. This poor kitten had no chance of survival unless these young men noticed him when walking along the rice field. The little thing got into a pond and got stuck in mud. It was a rather difficult task to take the kitten out. We don't know how much time this little creature spent trying to get out, but it was completely tired and covered with mud. The men washed it to remove all the dirt. Of course, the kitten didn't like it. The men took this wet and unhappy thing with him and gave him some food. The kitten was sure to die without their help. The stray pup Pascal by name lived in the streets of Istanbul in Turkey. It was a terrible period for him, as he had to suffer from hunger and different dangers. But meeting two children turned out to be much more dangerous for his life. The two boys poured the little guy with glue, putting his life at risk. The pup couldn't move at all. And of course, he didn't have any chance to survive without people's help. Pascal was found by the team of rehab center volunteers. They spent several hours trying to free the poor guy from his trap. Even after being released, Pascal couldn't recover. He was psychologically damaged, and his body was covered with chemical burns. But thanks to love and care, Pascal managed to recover from all his troubles. In a half a year, he was completely healthy, and his fur became very thick and beautiful. Pascal was adopted by a family from Spain and lives near the sea with them and his new dog friend. He's absolutely happy now, and of course, deserves this happiness. A cute tiny puppy only a few weeks old had been attacked by a wild beast. She had terrible wounds at the top of her head and under her throat. They caused swelling and infection. The poor thing couldn't even lift her head. Her neck wasn't broken, but there was serious nerve damage, and the puppy had little chance to survive without people's help. Luckily, the rescuers from Animal Aid Unlimited found the baby and took it to their center. The doctors immediately gave her painkillers and antibiotics to get rid of the infection. But except medical treatment, the little girl was in sore need of love and tenderness, and all this stuff she got from those people. They named this baby Sprinkles. She was in a very dangerous condition for 8 days, but the specialist decided to put her in the soft lap of her mother and siblings. 2 weeks later, the rescuers visited their little patient. Sprinkles was happy and playful. The danger passed, and she had all the chances for a good life. The rescuers from Hope for Paws got a call about two dogs living under the trailer, and they immediately rushed to help. But when they came to the place, one of the dogs was taken by her owner. Another one was scared to death sitting under the car. The people were afraid that the dog could get under the wheels because there was some traffic on the road. With the help of a noose, the specialists managed to catch the naughty pup, and luckily, it did surrender. The girl put on a leash on the dog and named her Haley. Trustfully, Haley let the people take her in a car, and the company went to the vet. The poor pup was so dirty that the rescuers had to shave her before washing and meeting a doctor. Haley patiently let people do what was required. She had to stay for several days at the hospital to get the necessary medical care. Haley was lucky to be fostered by the Hope for Paws friends Foxy and the Hounds, and she is sure to get all the possible love and care. Puppies near the road are unfortunately a very normal situation. Sometimes owners just abandon them there. This shy boy was luckily noticed by the girl from the project Four-Legged Friends somewhere near the main road. At the beginning, the pup was really scared, but then he was ready to go with his rescuer anywhere. The girl took the pup to her place where her other dogs lived happily, and they were happy to get a new friend. This young pup stayed with his rescuer and was very grateful for his rescue. Two little raccoons fell into a ditch and got stuck in a bog, but they were lucky and they were found by a kind person. The man carefully went down to the ditch and took out one of the raccoons. The second kid was able to get out on his own and ran after his brother. The kids did not run far from their savior. The man spread a blanket for them on the stones. and then he wrapped the raccoons in it after the kids got used to the man. At home, the man fed the kids. In the beginning, he gave them milk from a bottle. The raccoons were very hungry and ate with appetite. Then the man decided to try giving the babies milk from bulls. The kids turned out to be grown up enough and independent, so they were able to eat from the bull. Their appetite was enviable. Apparently, they spent a long time in the ditch. They were very lucky to be noticed. After feeding the kids, he released them back to their native and wild nature. We hope the kids will be more careful from now on. A homeless dog wandered into a real ghost town, but someone alive still noticed him and called Hope for paws so that rescuers would catch the poor boy. Rescuers immediately went to the rescue operation. They needed to find a blue-eyed dog. When rescuers found a street dog, they tried to lure him with tasty treats, but this did not work. Suddenly, the train started to move. No one expected this in the abandoned city. The poor dog got scared of the train, but the rescuers followed the dog, waited for him for many hours, but they had to act more decisively. They closed the area to prevent the dog from escaping. Rescuers did not want to leave the poor dog for the night in this terrible city. The dog was caught and named Prince. And since he had such a beautiful name, they gave him spa treatments to make him look like a prince. After a while, a real royal house with good owners was found for the prince. Early in the morning, Lori from Wildlife Aid received a call asking him to save the frightened fox. The poor guy is stuck in a basement light well. Lori came on call and with the help of a fireman coped with the task pretty quickly. They cornered the fox. The wild animal did not resist and let the noose be thrown over itself calmly. The fox was placed in a carrier and safely taken to the nearest forest, where the animal was released. The Australia Zoo rescue team were recently called to a rather difficult rescue. A young kangaroo had fallen into a canal with no chance of escape. The water level was rising as the tide was approaching, and it meant that the rescuers had to work quickly. The scared animal didn't realize people wanted to help and was hopping away. At last, the exhausted kangaroo stopped and rested his paws on a kayak, but the kangaroo was hesitating, so the people had to make some efforts to get him into the kayak. The team gently sedated the kangaroo, lifted him up out on dry land, and washed his feet with disinfectant. On waking up, the lucky fellow ran towards the forest. This dog was lucky to be spotted on time because she could not hold out for long in such a position. The poor animal fell into a very deep well. Fortunately, she found a small ledge and clung to it for several terrifyingly long hours. The dog was noticed by local children and told about it. Then a rescue team was urgently called. When rescuers from Animal Aid Unlimited arrived, the dog was already very exhausted. The rescuers got the poor fellow and took him to their center for rest and recuperation. The man was driving to work and could not believe his eyes when he saw a deer entangled in a football net. Without hesitation, the man decided to help the poor wild animal. He took a knife and started to cut the net. It took him 12 minutes to free the deer. The animal immediately jumped off into the distance, and his savior decided to go to a nearby school and tell them about the cut soccer net and offered to buy a new one. But the school management refused because such a good deed had been done. The person who saw this baby had no doubts and immediately called Hope for paws. Without hesitation, rescuers went to the aid of this little possum. These animals are very useful for the ecosystem and play a very important role. They help fight pests such as rats, cockroaches, ticks, and the like. The baby was taken to Animal Hospital of South Bay. There he was examined by Dr. Marchand. The doctor said that the baby is absolutely healthy. This made the rescuers very happy. Friends from the Pacific Wildlife Project helped the children and sheltered this child until he grew up and released into the wild. Animal Aid Unlimited India got a call about a dog suffering from a serious skin disease. When they found him, it looked as if he had gravel instead of skin. Though mange is curable, the dog's terrible skin condition was so advanced that he could lose his life without any help. The boy was severely dehydrated and needed IV fluids. With all necessary medication, lots of softening lotion, and good food, the dog was getting better and better. Sometime later, it was impossible to recognize Ramu, as the rescuers had named him. Now he's a very cute and joyful dog. The unfortunate little elephant was lost and could not find her mother. The baby was reported to the Kenya Wildlife Service. They decided to wait a few days in case the mother would return for her baby, but this did not happen. Adult elephants came and went, and the child was left alone. Then the rescuers boarded a plane from Nairobi and flew to Masai Mara, where the baby was. The baby was exhausted. She was without food for at least 5 days. She was loaded onto a plane and sent to Sheldrick. Upon arrival at the place, the elephant began to eat. She was very hungry. There in Sheldrick, she was named Olorian. The next morning, she was placed in a large stable to help her acclimate and enjoy the sun. For 2 days, the baby got used to the place and ate off. Then she was placed in a kindergarten with other elephants, where she found new friends. Now she even goes for walks in the forest with other elephant friends. Wildlife Aid received a badger with serious injuries. The new veterinarian immediately began to rescue the victim. She began to rinse the wound and remove hair in order to understand the extent of the damage. The wound was very serious. The doctor removed the bad parts of skin and applied the hydrocolloid patch to the wound for better healing. The badger was still young. He had good teeth. Everyone fought for his future. After the operation, the fighter was injected with antibiotics and painkillers. The badger was placed in an individual cell to restore strength. A few days later, the poor fellow again had to get to the doctor's operating table. Additional wound treatment was required. The lead veterinarian again produced all the operations necessary for recovery. Fortunately, after 4 weeks, the patient was healthy and full of energy. Therefore, experts decided to let him go where they found him. He was brought to the place of the first meeting and opened the cage. After a short time, the badger oriented himself where he needed to go and confidently ran towards his home and family. The Blue Cross organization in India day by day save a great amount of animals' lives. This time, they hurled all the efforts for rescuing the cow dropped into the well. The cow was standing in the water helplessly waiting for people's help. 2 men went down and tried to tie her with ropes to take her out. It took some time to do this because the cow was really nervous, but at last it calmed down and the rescuers managed to do their task. The scared animal ran away as soon as the men took the ropes from it. This dog was discovered helpless by a woman in the South Los Angeles. It took a rather long time to find the creature in the area mentioned. When they saw the poor thing, they immediately realized that she was blind. Not to scare the dog, the people let her smell them. For her, it was very difficult to trust. The rescuers called her Fiona and took the dog to the hospital. There, she got good care and all the necessary medical tests. The doctor confirmed that Fiona was totally blind, but he was ready to restore vision in one eye. And he did it. Fiona was extremely excited that she could see again. The rescuers from Animal Aid Unlimited India, as usual, try to help the most helpless and suffering. This time, they got a call to save a very sick street puppy. They found him hiding in a plastic bag. He screamed terribly in pain when the specialist touched the bag with his hand. The poor thing was too hungry to resist the biscuits the rescuers offered to him. But every time they tried to touch him, he cried. The dog had severe mange and a deep wound on his hip that was giving him shooting pains every time he moved. The men took the little guy to their center, and it took a lot of efforts for the rescuers to do all the necessary stuff for his recovery. The boy couldn't relax for even a moment in the first several days after rescue. But 6 weeks passed, and with all the medicine and care, Jumper, as the people called him, is happy again. Saving the hedgehog that got into a swimming pool. Going out into the swimming pool, a woman found out that something strange was in it. She couldn't make out what it was for the first time, but later she realized it was a hedgehog that had fallen into the pool. Of course, the animal had no chance to get out by himself. The woman was in a hurry to help the poor little boy and dove into the water. She managed to take him out and return this spiny cutie to the garden, where it was likely to live. It was a lucky case, because she could have come too late and the animal could have drowned. In Durban, South Africa, a black mamba snake crawled into a truck engine. This is not what can usually be seen in engines at all, but Nick Evans, snake rescuer, turned out to be very brave. At first, he put a special stick in her, but there were too many obstacles in the way. Then the young man very cleverly grabbed the poisonous snake by the head and pulled it out. The snake was huge, about 2.5 meters.
Oh, look at him, man. That's a big mamba.
Well, the courage of this man can only be envied. The people from the rescue team found this dog hit by a car in the street. He couldn't stand and was very frustrated. There was a confused expression in his eyes saying, "Why? Why won't my legs work?" When the rescue team took the dog to the hospital, no one knew for sure if it would be possible to help it walk again. Specialists examined the poor animal and found out that he had got a trauma to his spine, which had caused serious nerve damage. The doctors had just a little hope to cope with it, and they wanted to try. And they did. Sometime later, the dog, which was called Georgie, was able to walk again. He was very happy, relieved, and thankful to those who had saved his life. If not for these people, he would surely have not survived. The wildlife aid rescuers this time rescued an orphaned baby fox. The people found him in the garden and wanted to reunite him with his mother, but they didn't know if they managed to do that or not. The babies were blind and tiny, and the first thing the people did was trying to clear them from human smell so as not to alienate the mom. They left the boy there, waiting for the mom to come back for her child. But she didn't do that, and the rescuer brought the poor thing to the center. There, the vets were ready to take care of the newborn creature, toileting him and milking him with specialized formula substance. But he was not the only one. The next day, the second fox cub arrived at the center. So, specialists put them together, hoping they would feel good and later would be released to the wild together as well. This man from India found a disoriented bird working in the field. He brought it home and put it in the cage. But dealing with the bird, helping it turned out to be a great challenge, as the bird was really angry. It was sounding off when the man took her in his hands and tried to feed and give some water. The bird stayed with the man for some time. At last, it was okay, and he could set it free. Unfortunately, a sick and old animal becomes a burden for some. So what happened with this dog? She was found far from the city. There was only a road and fields nearby. The dog was groomed and not skinny, which meant that it was specially brought here. The old dog also had a noticeable health problem, a tumor on her stomach. Rescuers from DAR Animal Rescue immediately took her to the doctor. The doctor, having done all the necessary actions with the patient, made a decision about the operation. After the successful operation, the old woman stayed in rehabilitation for almost a month. She was constantly visited by rescuers and looked forward to her discharge. After being discharged, they began to look for a new home for the elderly lady. But the complex of senile diseases delayed this process a little. However, a caring home was found for the old woman. She was adopted by an elderly couple who can give her not only food and water, but also true love. The guys at Hope for Paws save animals every day. On this day, they saved a couple of lives. They went on a call to rescue a little kitten who lives under a shipping container. It wasn't difficult for them. They quickly caught the baby and placed it in a carriage. However, right after leaving the place of rescue, they received another call asking for help. The kitten got hit by a car. The baby was carefully taken out and taken to the hospital. It's not known how badly the poor thing suffered. We can only hope that the baby will recover soon and everything will be fine. The opossum somehow got into the trash can and couldn't get out of it. The man quickly moved the possum from the trash can to the container and closed it so that the wild animal would not run away and get lost in his house yard. The kind man took the container with the baby opossum and drove it to the forest. The possum acted rather timidly when the man opened the container lid in the forest. But realizing that he had been brought into the wild, the possum happily ran out of the container. Now the baby is free and safe. This situation took place in the Dabula area. An injured barking deer was laying down near the village. Villagers informed the wildlife office and they sent the rescue team to save the deer's life. When the rescuers found the creature, they had to hold him tightly because he didn't want to be saved and was very indignant by the people's actions. Examining the deer, they realized that he had some injuries. so they decided to bring him to the hospital to give him the necessary medical care. The Gates Wildlife Control Team was called out to rescue a baby skunk that had fallen into a 6-foot hole in a graveyard. No one knows how the little guy got there. The main problem was that the hole was prepared as an external place for someone, because there was a funeral happening in 2 hours and the skunk must be taken out by this time. On arriving to the place, the rescuer had to go down into the grave with a net and a trap. Luckily, the little guy didn't resist. Maybe he didn't want to stay in the grave either. The rescuer brought the skunk to a place far from the cemetery and let him go. Let's hope it won't have the tradition of visiting this place regularly. When some terrible disasters happen, not only people get in trouble, but animals suffer too. Thankfully, this dog was lucky. When the waters from the overflowing river washed the pup from the stone, it was trying hopelessly to climb the bridge wall, but failed, falling into the water again and again. After that, the clever dog managed to get to the stones near the riverbank, risking being washed away. Fortunately, there was a local man who managed to come closer and took it out of the water. As the rescuer said, he couldn't stand by and watch the desperate animal dying. The dog was taken to the nearest shelter, where it got all the necessary help. A rescuer from Hope for Paws went on call to pick up a scared little possum from the door. When he arrived at the scene, he saw that the possum had already been caught and put in a box. However, there was another possum. The animal ran into the garage and tried to hide under the closet, but was still caught by the rescuer. The rescuer was about to drive off, but he saw another small possum. The man ran after the baby and deftly grabbed him. All 3 baby possums were taken to the Pacific Wildlife Rescue. There they will stay for several months, and when the time comes, they will be released into the wild. The volunteers from DAR Animal Rescue in Greece every day do a very important job. They spend their time feeding stray animals. One day, they found a very cute, fluffy, but unhappy dog. The rescuers asked people around the neighborhood and knew that she lived there over a year. She was always afraid of people, and the attempts to catch her were unsuccessful. But during the lockdown, the dog was very hungry. The rescuers managed to catch her. They brought her to the vet, who said she was suffering from heartworm and needed to stay in the clinic. In a few days, the rescuers took the dog to their shelter, where she was going to wait for her forever family. Unfortunately, not all people feel responsibility for their pets. This girl was left alone in an empty lot. Her owners were evacuated and did not take her with them. A team from Hope for Paws came to pick up the abandoned dog. At first, the girl was nervous and did not know she should trust new people or not, and so she took snacks and ran off to the side. But for the 3rd time, she did not run away, but ate on the spot. The owners left her in November-December, and a neighbor all those several months fed the abandoned dog. Rescuers gave a new name to the dog. Now her name is Maple. When they opened the fence, she was extremely happy and jumped with happiness. Maple wagged her tail nonstop. It turned out that most of all, she missed attention, affection, and care. She quickly realized that these people can be trusted and obediently went with the rescuers into the car. She was happy. When she was brought to Hope for Paws Center, she was washed and put in order. Maple was very happy when she was taken to her foster home by the friends of her rescuers, guys from Angel City Pitbull. Maple was very fun and friendly. We hope that she will soon find a permanent home with caring and loving owners. I always adore people that come to the rescue of an animal without any hesitation. People were walking their dogs along the river when one of them fell into the water. The bank was very abrupt and the pup couldn't get out. The dog was struggling fiercely for his life when the woman rushed to rescue the poor thing. But the pup was too heavy and they couldn't get out of the water together. A man who was passing by just undressed and jumped into the water to help them. With great effort, people managed to draw the animal to the place where it was easier to get it out. Thanks to this man, everything was done very quickly, and nobody had injuries. This big, unfortunate dog turned to a woman for help, who found rescuers for him. The woman, seeing this dog in serious condition, decided to call DAR Animal Rescue, which literally saved his life. The woman, along with the lifeguard, put the poor man in a carrier and carried him to the car. For this, it was necessary to make a lot of effort, because as it turned out during the examination with the doctor, the dog weighs as much as 29 kilograms. The veterinarian sedated the frightened dog to carry out all the necessary medical procedures. X-rays showed a severe fracture of the leg. The poor man was clearly run over by a car. It was also necessary to rid the guy of the parasites. After waiting for all the test results, the doctor prescribed an operation. Everything went well. The dog only needed the rest he got. The dog was named Frank, and now he feels much better. The swan was accidentally drawn to fishing bait. The poor bird was left with a hook gone through her beak and needed urgent help. Simon, Lowry, and Jacob from Wildlife Aid rushed to the scene. They found 4 swans on the pond and had to lure the birds somehow. It turned out that they could only do it by going to the water in a boat. The swan got very angry when the men approached her, and it took them a lot of effort to catch it. And they did. The swans are really strong. That's why Simon had to deal with the beak very quickly. At last, the beak was free from the bait and the indignant bird was released. Do you believe in miracles? After this story, I definitely believe. The fact is that this baby was found bleeding. Blood came from the mouth and nose. In appearance, he had practically no chance of life. Nevertheless, he was taken to the vet, where the doctor did everything possible. On the next day, the puppy literally came to life, and he even had a good appetite. The whole Animal Aid Unlimited team was struck by his strength and will to live. The baby was named Rizu, and now he is a very cheerful and active puppy. An incredible rescue took place in the small town of Andes, New York. A dog named Meadow ran away from its owners when moving to a new house. His owners and local residents had already lost hope of finding him. The search for the golden retriever lasted more than a week, but there was not a single lead. Fortunately, on the 10th day, local videographer Brian Afflixio saw the story of the missing dog and decided to try to help with the search. Brian launched his drone high into the sky and saw Meadow. He couldn't believe his luck. The dog spent all these days without food and water, so she easily made contact. She was very calm and wanted to get home quickly. Brian first took Meadow to the man who organized the big search of the dog, and from there they contacted the owners and finally met for reunification. This poor mother was separated from her 4 puppies, but only in order to save them. She gave birth in the tunnel and people noticed her and the puppies. They were able to catch the kids, but not the mother. People turned to the Takish shelter for help, and the rescuer immediately left for the puppies. He couldn't think of anything else. All thoughts were only about the dog, which is worried about the loss of its children. Having arrived at the place, the man was able to lure the dog out of the tunnel with food. She was afraid, but hungry. The man managed to put a leash on the frightened dog and then took her to the puppies. The little fox cub lost his mom and could be starving without people's help. The rescuers from Wildlife Aid rushed to the place. It was hidden by Mom under the wooden house and was difficult to find. At last, the beautiful thing was found. It was a little girl, which now had all the chances to live a happy, foxy life. The rescuer put a camera near the wooden house in case there were more fox cubs near it. If they were, the specialists from Wildlife Aid would come back for them. Now they are in the center with all the necessary love and medical care. Little owls are completely defenseless creatures, and if they fall out of their nest, then without help, they cannot survive. This owl sat under a tree on which its nest and family. The baby looked calm at first glance, blinked his eyes, and did not run away. But when approaching, he clicked his beak, which indicates stress and fear. Mom owl watched him from above and was waiting for human help. The girl put the baby in a soft bag and began to lift him up. But the baby not only once fell from his nest, the second time the girl could not lift him up, so she put him in a cozy basket and tied it lightly on a tree branch. That was a great idea. Soon, Mom Owl and the whole owl family joyfully moved to a new nest basket to the baby. A kitten got trapped under the wheel and was meowing in terror. As soon as the man got it out, he examined the little kitten's body to see if it was injured. Luckily, the kitten was fine, just stressed and overwhelmed, a gray cutie with speckles of white. The man fed the kitten, and it eagerly got to its food. Hopefully, it's the last time the kitten got into trouble. Animal babies get into trouble very often. and sometimes their parents have no chance to help them. All they can do is stay and watch their babies suffering. So the mother of this poor thing was standing helplessly not far from it. But this little fawn was very lucky, because a man who was passing by noticed the poor baby being in trouble and tried to help it. Being stuck in the metal gate, it couldn't move and was very scared. The man pulled the fawn backward carefully and let it go. All the people on their channels need your support badly, and do help them with your likes and subscriptions. See you!